to grow and thrive under the leadership of such amazing women. For those of you who are new to NJBIA, we are the largest statewide business association in the country, representing approximately 1 million jobs in the state of New Jersey, which amounts to about 1/4 of New Jersey's workforce, offering customer development opportunities, visibility through events, magazine ads, our podcast, Planet New Jersey, which I'm on with two of my colleagues. It's fabulous. You want to join them? TV shows and money saving discounts on stuff you're probably already paying for, like payroll, healthcare, 401k solutions, and HR support. If you're interested, I will drop more info in the chat how you can reach me or how you can look up NJBIA. So now it is my pleasure to introduce Berdia Chambers, social media expert and founder and CEO of Epic Transformation and Licensed Realtor. Berdia is a social media strategist who is passionate about empowering small business organizations and individuals to strengthen their online presence and grow their business using social media. Berdia's expertise in technology and social media spans over 20 years in corporate America, where she evolved social and digital media across a Fortune 50 company, counseled top C-suite executives, and expanded small businesses. In addition to her work with small businesses and organizations, Berdia is also passionate about mentoring and helping women, whether they are in corporate or entrepreneurs. Berdia, we are thrilled that you're here with us. Thank you so much. Take it away, Berdia.
No problem. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me. I'm going to share my screen. I'm always excited to talk about this topic. I'm always excited to talk about social media. So I want to just kind of kick it off, and thank you for the introduction. I do appreciate it. Maximizing social media. There's so many ways to maximize social media. There's a lot of value associated with social media, and there's a lot of benefits, even though sometimes it does have a negative connotation. We're going to talk today about different ways to leverage the platform and to really be strategic about how we utilize the platform. So I always like to know the pulse of, who's using social media already, how people feel about social media. So I love to find out from everyone on the call who's already using social media in some type of way, whether it's personally or professionally. Who's using social media? Is everyone using social media already? Okay. Okay, perfect. Okay, good. Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. So let's get started. So in terms of what we're going to cover here today in the agenda, we're going to talk about building a strong personal brand. A lot of information when it comes to social media. Sometimes, what I find is the common theme is, of course, there's different social media platforms that are popular, that are trending, that are like the hottest new thing. And what I find the common thing is in the industry is that we kind of gear towards whatever the newest platform is or whatever the newest trend is. But a lot of the work in order to really approach social media strategically and maximize your impact, some of the work begins offline first. So we're going to talk about how you can kind of build that foundation online to make sure that you're approaching social media in a strategic manner, and then strategies and tactics for you to really leverage social media and maximize your impact. So now we will have questions and answers at the end. However, I do like for this to be an interactive session. So if you do have any questions, feel free to chime in. I'm happy to answer the questions. So now when we talk about the value of social media, I won't go into too much detail because I think everyone's kind of using it for personal and professional reasons already. However, when you think about social media, you think about visibility. Brand awareness is key. It's the way that you can, whether you're branding yourself personally, whether you're branding yourself professionally, or if you own a business and you want to brand the company, it's a way for you to increase that brand awareness and really amplify your activities and amplify your brand on social media. It's also cost effective. While there's some, use cases for either paid advertising or premium accounts, in order to really build a strong foundational presence and have an account for the most part, there's minimal to no investment that's needed in order to really kind of start to create that online presence. It's also faster than traditional marketing, which is one of the reasons why I love it so much. So, you can have a blended marketing strategy. There's still some use cases for mail and print. But when it comes to the speed at which your presence gets amplified, social media is faster than traditional marketing channels. There's also a whole host of opportunities. There's opportunities for you to build partnerships, build relationships, open doors for new career opportunities, build relationships, build business connections. There's so many different avenues that if you use social media the right way, that it can open those doors and really amplify and help you strengthen your personal and professional brand. So now where do you start? When it comes to building a strong personal brand, you want to make sure your brand is representing who you are. Your brand represents, it's going to be how people recognize you. So whether it's on a personal, professional level, and sometimes they're intertwined. And the reason why I say they intertwine, you notice that I use personal brand, professional brand. You're still a human at the end of the day. So even though you have your personal brand, you want to make sure your personality is integrated into your brand, because that's what's going to distinguish you from others. Let's say you're in the technology industry and, there may be someone who's, has the same type of position that you have. And maybe you're using social media in order to connect with recruiters or companies or whatever the case may be. Your brand, it's what's going to distinguish you from the same person who may have the same role or the same position that you do. It's how you position your brand and how you leverage social media strategically that's going to make you stand out. So step one is going to be, and this is where the work takes place offline, right? Think about, even if you're already using social media, you can still take a step back and think about this. Why is it that you do what you do? What is your passion? Who is your target audience? Are you targeting certain companies in certain industries? Are you targeting hiring managers at certain companies? Are you targeting to connect with recruiters? Is it business owners, like industry leaders? Like, who is it that your goal, what's your goal of connecting? This is where you want to make sure you're intentional about what you're doing, which will provide the foundation for the strategy and how you utilize social media. And then we already talked about how will you distinguish yourself from others? And we're going to talk about different ways that you can distinguish yourselves from others, but you want to make sure that whether it's your industry, your area of expertise, your passion, your mission, everything that makes you you and who you are and what you represent from a professional perspective, that's how you start to identify your brand identity. You also need to make sure that once you have your identity, a lot of times we'll have it in our mind, but I would say write it down. Make sure you write it down, because there's something to be said about what's on paper comes to life, right? You want to make sure you're defining your brand tone and your voice. So your brand personality is going to be your brand voice. It's how you show up online. So when you craft your messaging and you post something on social media or you write a blog or whatever the case may be, and these are just a few examples, but do you want to have a confident tone? Do you want to have a warm or approachable tone? There's different ways that you tailor your messaging to make sure that your brand is represented through your voice. And then your tone is basically your tone. While your brand personality and your brand voice, it should always be consistent, your brand tone and how you respond will be different depending upon the situation. So if, there's a message that you want to respond to or a comment that's made on some of your social media content, you may want to respond in an understanding tone, which, depending upon the situation, it may be helpful. It may be understanding, but the overarching brand messaging and your brand personality will not change. Any questions so far? Okay, so now the fun part, selecting your social media platforms. Be intentional about this step. Out of the platforms that are on this screen, I like to know, what is everyone using mostly? What's your favorite platform that you're using? I don't think I can see the chat, so,
I use LinkedIn a lot.
okay, good. LinkedIn is my favorite. Anyone else? LinkedIn, Facebook, Insta, Twitter. Okay, so we have a good mix. X. We don't know what it's called, Twitter or X, right? LinkedIn and Instagram for cute dog videos. Yeah, so that's a personal, very personal way of using it, right? So we have a good mix of use, which is good. When I say be intentional, right? LinkedIn is my favorite because it's the easiest platform. Easiest in terms of if your goal is to build genuine relationships, then you want to make sure that you are utilizing LinkedIn. It's where people are looking for, it's where people are looking for trustworthy, credible content. LinkedIn has always been known as the professional platform. It's also known as the #1 B2B platform if you're looking to connect with businesses and companies. It's also the #1 recruiting platform if you're looking for career opportunities or jobs and things like that. Now, when it comes to, we use Instagram as well, more visual platform, right? Different demographic. So it's video is very, very common, the most engaging type of content that we can share these days. So Instagram is more visual. You can share pictures, you can share videos. X or Twitter, of course, is, I don't even watch the news anymore. I really just kind of go to, and you'll hear me call it Twitter because I haven't fully converted to calling it X. But I'll check my Twitter feed to find out what's going on in the news. It's a good platform for information, news, educational information as well. In addition to YouTube, if you have, like webinars or educational type of information that you want to provide, you can do that as well. And then Facebook, it's still popular, so Facebook can be used to connect with consumers, as well. And then we all know TikTok, very, very trendy. I would say TikTok, in terms of the fastest amplification, it's going to be more than likely on TikTok. However, you have to make sure that your target audience is represented on these platforms. So this is where you identify, based on your goal, based on your intent, and based on your brand, who is it that you want to connect with. And you can take a look and do a search on these platforms, or, feel free, you can ask me as well, but you want to make sure that you are where your target audience is. And above all, if your #1 goal is to kind of build those genuine connections and business relationships, then I would start with LinkedIn, but also complement with the other social media platforms, because you want to make sure you're customizing and tailoring your approach to each platform that you're using. Okay, so once you have selected your platforms, you want to make sure you're building and optimizing your profile. So whether it's your bio, whether it's your headshot, you want to make sure that there's consistency across all the different platforms. You want to make sure, and I'll use LinkedIn as an example. LinkedIn is you have your profile. That's your brand right there. You want to make sure that your about section is very compelling. You want to make sure it includes certain keywords that are relative to your industry, relative to your area of expertise, relative to a certain position or job that you may be looking for, because when recruiters are looking for certain candidates for positions, they're going to do a scan, and you want to make sure those keywords are represented in your profile. You also want to make sure that you're customizing your handle and/or your profile URL. For LinkedIn, as an example, your URL that you're automatically assigned when you create a LinkedIn profile, it usually has whatever your name is with a series of numbers and characters that really don't mean anything. Make sure you customize that, because whether it's for a company, whether it's with, professionals, you Google search. You want to make sure that when people are searching for you, that you're increasing your SEO and that all of your information is shown. So when someone Googles you, they should see your LinkedIn profile, they should see your Google account, they should see your TikTok account, they should see your website. Everything that makes up your brand, you want to make sure it's consistent, and you want to make sure it's represented in the identity of how you are showing up online. You also want to make sure your contact information is represented. So how are people contacting you? Is your email address present? Is your website address present? Do you have your social media handles and things like that represented on your profile? This is the first impression that people will have of you. You want to make sure it stands out, and you want to make sure that it represents your brand. Any questions? Okay, so you have your profile, you have your brand defined. Now it's time to showcase your expertise. You can showcase your expertise in a variety of different ways. And there's some there are ways that you can save time, I'll say, whether it's a new article that, was just released in your field, or there's certain trends that you maybe have a perspective on, where you want to share information related to your industry, but your goal is to also provide valuable content. Your goal is to share your perspective, make sure it's related to your industry or an industry that you are, I want to say, targeting, or maybe want to get more involved in. And so people can get closer to your ideas, your perspective, and your personal or professional brand. And some of the resources that you can utilize to, accomplish this is, of course, your professional profile, as we mentioned. If you have a topic or an area of expertise, you can write blogs so people can really, like, from a thought leadership perspective, really understand your perspective, your opinions, your advice, any type of ideas that you have. Social media posts and content, what you post on social media makes a difference. So making sure that in the content that you post on social media, it's representative of your brand voice, is representative of your brand personality, and is representative of your area of expertise. There's also newsletters. You can have speaking engagements to show that you're an authority figure, or you can, host webinars and workshops, etc. I think, is there a question in the chat? Okay, perfect. Any questions so far? Okay, so now that you have I'm going to call the foundational work done, how can you really kind of take that network and engage and really be strategic about what you're doing? So you want to make sure you're growing your network. So growing your network, when you're sharing content, there's only but so much people can kind of see what you're doing if you have a small network. So who should you engage with? You should be engaging with people who are in your industry, and or people who are associated with the companies or the businesses or the industry leaders that you want to connect with. The larger your network, the larger the opportunity, the more opportunities. The larger your network, the more you can amplify. The larger your network, the more visibility you'll have. So these are just some of the things that are important to just the foundation of really growing your network. There will be people who will send you invitations to connect on LinkedIn. There will be people who are following you on Instagram. So you want to make sure that you're visible. You want to make sure that you're present, and you want to make sure that you're continuously, I would say, on a daily basis, making sure you're growing your network. You should also be engaging in meaningful conversations. So part of it is growing, the other part is engaging. So make sure you're active, make sure you're active and talking to people. And we'll talk about on the next slide, just some of the tips and ways you can do that, but meaningful conversations that are related to your professional brand, right? So whether it's your industry, whether it's a topic that you're interested in, whether it's a topic that you're passionate about, or whether it's something that's occurring in the news that may be something that's related to what makes up your brand. You want to be relevant, you want to be meaningful, and you also want to be timely as well. And then you want to provide value and support. So valuable content is what's important. providing value in what you say, how you say it, how often you say it is what's key. People are looking to make sure that they are either learning. Of course, we talk about being entertained. We were just talking about TikTok. So like the information that you share, you want to make sure you're intentional. What is your goal? So if you know that the people that are in your target audience are looking to be entertained, then you may want to be entertaining. If it's more informational, maybe you want to provide content that's going to be valuable from an informational perspective. Maybe it's news, maybe it's educational. So making sure that you have your purpose and your goal and how you're going to provide value is what's key. Any questions? Okay. So some tactics and tips. We talked about connecting. Who should you connect with? Make sure you're connecting with professionals. Make sure you're connecting with recruiters. It could be hiring managers. It can be other business owners. It can be, you know, people who are just kind of authority figures in your industry. It could be decision makers at a company. But make sure you have a good plan and list of who it is that you want to connect with. Personalize your messages. How many of you on LinkedIn, and I'm going to talk about LinkedIn for a second, how many of you personalize your message when you're connecting with someone on LinkedIn? When you send that invitation to connect, how many of you are personalizing your message? If you're not personalizing your message, I suggest that you do. Why? You want to make sure you're providing some type of substance behind why you want to connect with someone. And this is how you leverage the profile. So if you see the last bullet under leveraging your LinkedIn profile really gives you a whole host of opportunities to be able to connect with people. And here's how. Whether it's you may be in the same industry, whether it's you went to the same school, whether it's you worked at the same company, whatever the case may be, that LinkedIn profile is a whole host of information that gives you, I want to say, a conversation starter and really common ground on why you want to connect with someone. If you don't have anything in common, like you're not in the same industry, you may have a mutual connection in common. You know, there's different ways to build that connection, but always make sure that you're personalizing your messages. Even if you're utilizing, you know, DMs on Instagram, make sure you're personalizing your message. Don't go with the canned language that LinkedIn provides that just says, I'd like to add you to my network on LinkedIn. That doesn't really give anyone any substance behind why you want to connect with them. You should also...
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So for me personally, you know, I'm in sales and I have to bring on my own book of business under Insperity. So I'm doing my thing, making, you know, my own brand under Insperity. But when I reach out trying to connect with people, typically business owners or, you know, HR people on LinkedIn, I'm reaching out to them because I want to schedule a meeting with them. So if I put something of the sort in my invite, I feel like 9 times out of 10, it's a sales pitch. And I don't want to come across that way, but you know, at the end of the day, I want to introduce myself. So for someone like me, I don't want to be, you know, I don't want to sound like I'm not being genuine, making something up.
Mhm.
Like the goal is for me to get in front of someone and learn about them, see if it makes sense for them to learn about our business. But I have a hard time with that because I have done the get very, you know, in depth with how we might have things in common. But then it just seems like ingenuous to me when they're like, oh, but you're trying to sell me something, you know?
I see. I understand. So with that, and there's a variety of different ways that you can do it. A lot of times what I do is, you know, you can schedule just kind of like an introductory call, right? And then it all depends on, everyone's not going to be open to it. Everyone's not going to, you know, maybe respond or, you know, things like that. But I think with that first connection or that first message, being intentional about it. Could be just a 15-minute introductory conversation, which could lead into other things to try to provide some foundation into, because you are in your role, and that is the goal of what you are doing, and you don't want to come across salesy, but you have to kind of get to know the person in order to get to that point anyway. So
Exactly.
it's the relationship building part that I would say that, utilizing, like, crafting the message that is personalized to really, I always say that I have a lot of conversations that begin on LinkedIn, but the genuine relationship is kind of like built off of LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
So I have a lot of whether it's virtual coffee chats, so whatever the case may be, and then utilize LinkedIn and other forms of communicating to kind of make sure that you're keeping in touch and kind of nurturing that relationship, especially with, the type of role that you're in.
Okay.
A great question.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, when we talk about engaging, so, direct messaging is one form, but engaging, you don't underestimate the amplification of just liking someone's content. And the reason why I say that is because, and I'm thinking about LinkedIn, of course, but it applies to other platforms. When you just click on like or heart or, or congratulations, whatever the case may be, here's the beauty of the amplification, and the reason why the larger your network, the better it is. And I'll use LinkedIn as an example. When you like someone's post, everyone in that person, let's say you have like 500 connections in your network and that person has 1,500 or 1,000 or whatever the case may be. That's the beauty and the speed of the amplification and the reach, right? Because everyone can see that you clicked on or liked that person's content. So you have the 500 people in your network, in addition to the 1,000 to 1,500 people in that person's network. When we talk about growing your network and when we're talking about engaging, that's the speed at which people can see your name, your headshot, your headline, what you do, what your area of expertise is, and what is representative of your professional brand. So that's one of the reasons why you want to make sure that you're utilizing some of these tactics, and some, minor, I would say, even if it's like 15 minutes per day, 5 to 15 minutes per day, check your news feed, follow people, invite people to connect with you on LinkedIn, engage with their content on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Facebook. There's also groups and communities that you can join. That's a way to kind of showcase your areas of expertise as well, especially when it's a group that's related to your industry. It's an opportunity for you to share your opinion or share some advice on a topic that may be related to your area of expertise. And then when you're leveraging your LinkedIn profile, we kind of talked about some of the commonalities of a conversation starter. But for instance, if you're going to a networking event, you can utilize the LinkedIn profile in a couple of different ways. One is, if you have an idea of who's going to be at the event, you can look them up on LinkedIn, and it's not stalking, but you can look them up on LinkedIn, find out exactly, maybe there's things that you have in common or things that can, trigger a conversation. And then you'll know and be intentional at a networking event of who you may want to connect with, reach out to, and have a conversation with. In addition to that, let's say you don't look at their LinkedIn profile ahead of time because you really don't know who's going to be at this event. When you meet people at these networking events, connect with them on LinkedIn. That's the first thing that you should do. Make sure you're connecting with them on LinkedIn. It keeps the conversation going. It helps to build and strengthen that relationship, and they get to kind of see your professional brand and what you do and the value that you provide. Okay, now maximizing your impact. Any questions so far? Okay, so maximizing your impact. How can you maximize your impact? You want to make sure you're compelling. By compelling, when you identify who your target audience is, you want to make sure that you're resonating with them. You want to make sure that what you're posting is resonating with them. So if you post something about a certain topic, it should be constructed and crafted. The message should be crafted in a way where it's resonating with your target audience. And knowing who your audience is the only way you can make sure that you're creating content that resonates with them. You also want to tailor your approach for each platform. LinkedIn is different than Instagram, which is different than X or Twitter, which is different than YouTube, which is different than TikTok. So you don't necessarily want to have the same exact approach for every platform. Different demographics, different interests, different purpose, different audience, different objectives. So making sure you tailor your approach specific to that platform is what's going to help. Mix up your content. You can share videos, you can share articles, white papers, infographics, images, mix it up. See exactly what's going to resonate with your audience. See exactly what's going to be engaging for them. And then you can kind of leverage that trend and kind of leverage that information going forward. You also want to make sure you're being human. Be genuine, be personal, right? So you are, whether, even though it's your professional brand, what is it that makes you passionate about what you do? What is it that you enjoy about what you do? Maybe you have certain hobbies that you want to share, that to kind of bring it into who you are as a professional and as a person. But making sure you're being genuine and authentic at the end of the day, it's what's going to help. Is that a question in the chat? How long or short should your LinkedIn post be? Great question. So when it comes to LinkedIn posts, I want to say the trend changes quickly, rapidly, I'll say. So at one point it was about shorter content, right? Then, LinkedIn introduced the long form posts. And in addition to the long form posts, now just regular LinkedIn captions, you see longer captions. You see people providing, a lot of information, whether it's advice, expertise, news, whatever the case may be. Now, in a recent study that was released by LinkedIn, it seems like there's a trend towards shorter captions. And I'm testing this out because it'll be different for each person. So even though this is what is, I want to say, like a common trend that has been seen, you have to do what works for your audience. So a recent LinkedIn study basically shared that captions should be 19 words or less. It's something I'm testing out currently to see if it's true. Well, to see if I don't want to say see if it's true, because there's different trends or different things that work for different people. I'm curious to see whether there's some truth to it. So I would say medium-sized captions are what works. And then when it comes to like longer, you have the blog posts, you have things like that. But I would err on the side, because you want to make sure you're still providing valuable information. And it's about how you kind of get it across in your content. So you want to make sure in your caption that you have some white space. Everything's just not one long paragraph. You want to make sure you're using kind of like bullet forms to make sure your information is succinct and straight to the point. So I would say I would err on the side of, medium size captions. No problem. Did I end? Okay, got it. Okay, perfect. Okay, so benefits and results. So the benefits and results are endless. We talked about increased visibility. When you share your perspective, your experience, your expertise, it establishes trust and credibility among your target audience. It establishes, you have your brand, but it strengthens your brand reputation as well. You become an authority figure. You become a thought leader and known for a trusted source of information in regards to that specific topic. We talked about networking opportunities. They're endless. People are joining, these social media platforms rapidly on a daily basis. The larger your network, the more opportunities you have. It's an opportunity to also, whether it's partnerships, whether it's, we talked about career advancement, whether it's collaboration opportunities, just new business relationships. You know, for those who are in like a business ownership role, and your goal is to kind of get customers, it does lead into, you get leads as well. So it does turn into additional prospecting opportunities and additional leads, which can generate sales as well. And I know we haven't touched on it a lot, but that is something that is a result and a benefit of utilizing LinkedIn as well. So you have those measurable results, not just LinkedIn, social media. Okay, do's and don'ts. As we talked about, know your audience, know who you're talking to, know who you want to connect with. Keep your information up to date. I can't tell you how many times I come across maybe a profile where someone may have moved on to a different position. However, their profile is not up to date. It shows that they still work at a different company and their information is not up to date. If you're connecting with people and you want to grow your network, you want to make sure that your information is up to date. Your current website address, your current phone number, email address, whatever the case may be, make sure it's up to date. And you should also kind of cross promote. So you can include links on your profiles. You can include links on your Instagram account. Make sure you have, whether it's your Facebook link, whether it's your LinkedIn link, whether it's your website link, make sure people can find you wherever they are, because everyone's not going to be on every single platform. And then you want to make sure that you're maintaining a consistent brand across all platforms. So whatever your branding language is that's on LinkedIn, you want to make sure that it shouldn't be too much different, even though you have less space to work with in a bio and Instagram. It shouldn't be totally different. It should still be cohesive. It should still be consistent and represent your personal and professional brand. You don't want to post too much. How often should you post? It depends. It depends and it changes. With LinkedIn, there's an average of like maybe they say 3 to 5 times per week. I would err on the side of like 3 to 4 times per week. That's kind of like the average. If you mix it up between posting content and engaging, you don't necessarily have to post content every single day, because if you choose to say, you know what, I'm only going to post content on LinkedIn twice a day, then if you're engaging and commenting with other people during those other days, you're still being visible and you're still amplifying your reach. Same thing with Instagram. With Instagram, if you do like maybe a reel or 2 per week, and, or you decide to maybe post 1 reel per week, if you're messaging people through DMs and you're commenting on people's posts, you're still being active. So it's just a strategic way of how you want to go about making sure that you're visible and that you're consistent with what you're doing. Don't copy and paste your resume on your LinkedIn profile. Here's why. Your About section on LinkedIn should bring people closer to who you are. Yes, it can include your accomplishments. Yes, it can, share or articulate your area of expertise, but it should not be word for word your resume. Your resume has its purpose. Your LinkedIn profile is your brand, and it's how people are going to get to know you on a professional level, but also you as a person. Engaging in controversial topics, steer away from, those topics, because when it comes to your brand, you want to make sure that, listen, whether you're looking for a business opportunity, whether you're looking for customers, whether you're looking for another position or for career advancement, everyone's watching. So they're looking at your profile, they're looking at what you're doing, and you want to make sure that your activity is representative of your brand. And then we talked about posting content. You want to make sure it resonates with your audience. Don't post anything that doesn't resonate. And the way that you know that whether it resonates or not is to kind of take a look at your activity. There's ways for you to kind of take a look at your demographic to make sure that the people you are connected with, or the people who do follow your accounts, are within a certain maybe age range, area, industry, job title, whatever the case may be. You can take a look at that information to make sure it's representative of who your target audience is or not, and make any changes that you need to your strategy to make sure you are, being intentional about who you are connecting with. And then a few things to remember. Wait, I think there may be a question. Anything that you should not include. This is on the profile. Is that Danielle on the profile?
Yes.
Anything that you should not include? I can't think of anything that you shouldn't include. You know, sometimes people, so here's the thing, you may find people who say, you know what, I'm not going to include my hobbies, or I'm not going to include the fact that, you know, what I enjoy doing on the weekends. It's a matter of personal preference. Some people will want to err more on the side of, I'm going to keep it strictly professional and include just my professional journey. Some people want to be more personal and say, you know what, I want to include my hobbies because I want people to understand who I am as a person. So I would say it depends on the personal preference. But when it comes to anything that you shouldn't include, you know, you could, if we talk about like the do's and don'ts, you know, usually the areas of like, you know, religion, politics, like the kind of controversial topics, I'll say, as a best practice, and it's of course personal preference, but those are some of the more controversial topics. So you don't want someone to, you know, kind of get stuck on that. So it's up to you whether you choose to include it or not. But as a best practice, if we're going to keep it in that area of professional, then I would say, you know, kind of steer away from those as a best practice. Here's what we want to remember, key items. When you define your goals, it means that you're being intentional. You're being intentional about who you're connecting with. You're being intentional about which platforms you're using. You're being intentional about what you're saying, what your messaging is going to be. You're being intentional about everything. When you are truly, truly intentional, that's how you're really maximizing your impact of utilizing social media. You're being consistent. So I can't tell you how many times I'll talk to, you know, a prospect or a client, and I'll ask them, you know, how often do you use social media? Or when's the last time you used social media? And they said, well, I use social media, but I haven't posted or been on it in 6 months. That's not being consistent. You want to make sure whether it's once a week, whether it's twice a week, you have a plan, you have a strategy around how you're being consistent. And the reason why is because when people start to look for a certain sort, you look to you as a certain source of information, you want to show up. So you don't want to be present 1 week and then not show up again until 6 months later. Be authentic. We talked about that. You know, I don't want to get started on the topic of AI. But if you do utilize AI, make sure that you're still being authentic. If you're utilizing AI for any tools to help with writing or whatever the case may be, still be original, still be authentic. Make sure it's representing your personal or professional voice, your brand personality. Provide value. We talked about that. And then make sure you're measuring your progress. Is it working? You know, if you're devoting time into it, you want to make sure that you're measuring your progress. So each platform does have like a dashboard or analytics. You know, you can look at your Instagram dashboard. You can look at, you know, LinkedIn, whether it's the personal profile, it has some analytics that you can see, you know, who you're reaching. You can see kind of like some metrics on your content. So you want to make sure you're really measuring your progress. And even if something that you post does not get a tremendous amount of likes, it doesn't mean that people don't see it. So don't underestimate the beauty of just being visible. Engagement is key. However, it's about showing up, and it's about who's actually seeing what you're posting. It's about who's seeing your profile. That's really going to help you to be successful. So, any questions? Just wanted to share my contact information. I am on social media, so feel free to reach out and connect with me. With Epic Transformation, you can also follow the company presence and engage as well. We do provide, you know, complimentary 30-minute consultations. So if you're interested in talking more about social media, anything that I can do to help, by all means, feel free to reach out and let me know. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Berdia, I have a question. I'm Jennifer Eckhoff from the Eastern Monmouth Area Chamber of Commerce. I was lucky enough to hear you speak at the Women's Convention last fall, and I have been following you ever since, but still not doing all the things I'm supposed to do. My one question is it okay to start on one platform and not necessarily, I find it time consuming. It's not what I really excel at. So to make the effort, is it better to make the effort on just one instead of trying to brand all out and then, or one and two, because you may be hitting just different. Like, for example, I'm thinking I like Instagram because it's fun.
Mhm.
But I know professionally LinkedIn is better, and that is where I want to be.
Okay.
So if I focused on just LinkedIn and on my Instagram and ignored all the others, is that a bad thing or a good thing?
It's not a bad thing. You have to start where you feel comfortable. A lot of times I'll find people will spread themselves thin, right? Because they want to have a presence on so many different platforms. But I think LinkedIn is just like table stakes, right? Because of course it's professional. So somewhere between 1 to 3 is what I usually recommend, but it depends upon, you know, your bandwidth, your capacity, what exactly you want to do. I definitely do think that LinkedIn is a good place to be. And then Instagram, based on if your target audience is there, then, definitely. But I do know people who, and help people who, they utilize one platform. They say, I don't want to be anywhere else. This is where my target audience is, and this is what I'm going to leverage to the best of my ability. And they see results. So I recommend somewhere between 1 to 3. 1 to
Okay.
3.
And I have a second question. Am I allowed to ask two?
Yes.
So I have a marketing manager who handles the work for the office, for the chamber, but I'm looking to build my personal brand on my own. So not separate, but I have my own page versus the page that she handles for the business.
Mhm.
It's the business is very much me, so it's going to be similar in voice. Is it okay to cross and tag the company when I'm talking about something like that?
Yes.
And is it bad not to tag the company? Like,
So
what's the recommendation on that?
you can have a blended approach. So establishing and kind of utilizing your professional/personal brand is only going to complement it, right? Because even though a company presence is important, people want to do business with people, right?
Mm.
So with that, it's good to tag, it's good to repost, it's good to share, but the difference is your voice, like your brand is going to be present in your account, like your profile. So I would definitely do that. And and you can even do something, whereas if there's something that's shared from the company's page, you can reshare it on your personal profile, add your perspective, and there you go. Your voice is there, your personality is there, and you don't have to always do a repost, but you can post originally from your profile. But it's a compliment. It's definitely going to help, I would say.
Great. Thank you so much.
No problem. Anytime. Any
I
other?
have a question. So I post every day on LinkedIn, but for whatever reason, I don't know if it's because of what I'm posting. I'm always posting one of my company's blogs, or, like a SHRM blog, or, just a blog that's relevant with, uh, you know, me describing what I think is important from there. Because what my goal is on LinkedIn is to, look like a resource, obviously show people I know what I'm talking about in the industry. So I feel like by putting something outside of just my own opinion, it's kind of like backing up what I'm saying, kind of thing. But I'm
Okay.
not seeing a lot of impressions doing that, because I'm looking at it now. I mean, sometimes I get over 100, but then other times I'll get like 4 or 10 impressions. So I don't know. Do you think maybe I should not just post, one type of thing?
That's
Like,
good.
yeah, I'm done. I'm just trying to figure it out, like self-diagnose it. So I'll let
No,
you
it's
go.
fine. It's fine. I was going to mix it up. If you are sharing, so I've worked with individuals and companies who, will share either like a link to a newsletter or a blog post, and it's kind of like the same type of content, even though it's a different topic. So I would say mix it up. Mix it up. So I would say mix up a few different things. Mix up the type of content that you share. Maybe you can create a visual or like an infographic that represents the same type of information. Try different times of the day. There's something, test it out. Is it morning? Is it afternoon? Is it evening? I'm working with a client. One of the, trends with their account that I was surprised at is that because LinkedIn is usually professional, like, during business hours. with their account, their network was the most active at like 9 p.m. and this was LinkedIn. So you'd be
Makes sense.
surprised at when your particular network is active. So what I would do is I would take a couple of weeks and I would do like a test run. And it may be like a month's worth of data, but you can probably accomplish it in 2 weeks. Create a plan where you intentionally create either it's a link to a blog for this post, and maybe that one is like in the morning, and then maybe the next one is an image or an article or a video, and post that one in the afternoon on a different day, to mix it up and see exactly how that works. You can also, play around with keywords and hashtags. So there's a lot of different things that you can experiment with to see how the difference in like the impressions and the engagement.
Okay.
But
Thank
first and
you.
foremost, I would say mix up the content.
Yeah.
With LinkedIn, and all the information is I'm giving you, I'm thinking about it, thinking it through. In addition to like the times and everything, carousels is something that is definitely effective on LinkedIn. So I would say experiment with that as well. You have your blog post, you can break it down into like a few different pages and post like a PDF carousel. That's really effective on LinkedIn as well. So I would say try that.
Okay.
Hi, Bradia. Thank you so much. This has been so fascinating and making me think so much more deeply about what I'm doing or not doing.
No problem. I can help.
But what it sounds almost like is reminding me of how, like for my business, so I run a nonprofit childcare center in Passaic, and we are very active on social media. It reminds me of how we do it. Like we create like a content calendar and a digital media plan. And I'm somebody who I need to write things down and have checklists and stuff. So it almost makes me sound like maybe I want to create something similar. It wouldn't be as rigid as that, but where I'm thinking about what are the topics that I want to share? What are the things that make me, unique, or what are interesting to me? And yeah, so it's very much reminding me of that type of idea of needing to sort of write down a little bit of what kind of content I'd be interested in sharing. And then that's where maybe I can think through varying the types of posts, say, okay, I already did a post this week on, where I shared an article. So maybe next week I want to do something different. So yeah, I don't know. It was more a comment than a question, but do you use a particular tool to help you organize your thoughts on it, or?
So great question and great comment, because your thought process in terms of like the plan and having a plan ahead is key.
Yeah.
So one of the things that, we do for our clients is we usually plan a month ahead. So we have an editorial calendar that we plan ahead, and it's based on the social media strategy, based on the content strategy, and based on content pillars. That can be for a company or an individual, right? So if you have your list of topics, you want to make sure that the way you plan it in your content calendar, that you're being not objective, you have your objective.
Okay.
If it's an educational post, if it's thought leadership, whatever your objective is, you want to make sure you're planning it out. And then in terms of tools like saving time, there's tools like Hootsuite, there's Buffer, there's Later, there's different tools in that way where you can schedule content in order to make sure you're saving yourself time. And even if you have your month ahead plan, there's still things that may change throughout the month, of course, but I would say at least, once every 2 weeks or once a week, have your plan for the week. So you want to make sure that, and I hear a lot of comments from, some of my colleagues in the industry that say, I get home and like 10 o'clock at night, I'm thinking about what I'm going to post on social media. So having that plan ahead, to your point, is going to save you time. And then if you have a tool that's going to help you to schedule that content, it'll save you time, because you can set it either the beginning of the week, beginning of the, like every 2 weeks, or even if you really have an extensive plan, you can set it for a month ahead. So yes.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. I think I saw a question. Yes, so Hootsuite has become very expensive, hasn't it? So is there a program similar to Hootsuite that is less expensive to use as an individual, not a business? So there are a few. So I mentioned Buffer. It is less expensive. The capabilities, I would say it doesn't necessarily have all of the capabilities that Hootsuite has. I mentioned later, there's so many different platforms that you can use. Those are the two that come to mind. What I can do is kind of share some resources as a follow-up to this call that could possibly be, of help to anyone who's looking for different platforms, because I've done some research and some evaluation of the tools in the industry.
Thank you, because we use Hootsuite for the business, but I'm looking for something to help me.
Okay, all right,
So thank you.
no problem. Any other questions?
Berdia, that was fabulous. I mean, I feel like we all use social media, and I know that I don't use it as effectively as I would like. I'm even looking at working on some social media for the Women Business Leaders Forum, connected with the Women Business Leaders Council, so we can have just start posting things that, just like you said, maybe not exclusive to our council, but that we can all relate to, or things that are just kind of bubbling about that people would like to talk about. So it's all around us, but how to use it most effectively is sometimes lost because it's just overwhelming. So thank you so much.
It can be, yes, it definitely can be.
I know it is for me. So I want to thank you. I'd like to also say that their next Women Business Leader Council meeting is going to be May 15th. So look for that. That'll be emailed out. Also, a recording of this is going to be sent to you via email within the week. Are there any more questions? I don't want to cut anyone off in case we have some more. Okie dokie. Well, thanks again. Thank you, Berdia, for speaking. It was wonderful. I am Casey Skarecki again. So until next time, have a fabulous week. Hopefully it doesn't rain too much. And you can always reach out. We will be emailing this to you, but you can always reach out to me with any questions.
All right, thank you, everyone. Enjoy your day.
Thank you. Bye.
you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.